neighborhood in Boston, the home of Western civilization as we know it today. First, they're in good faith. The first long-term European settlers to the North End, John Winthrop and 700 Puritans, they arrived here about 1630. They were looking for some place where they could practice religion freely, and they were looking for some place where they could make money. The name of the excursion these 700 people were on was called the Massachusetts Bay Company. It was a for-profit venture. What they found when they got here was a skinny little piece of land called the Shawmut Peninsula. It stuck out into the harbor. It was only 3 square miles, 2/3 of it unbuildable. Too rocky or too swampy, depending on where you were. By the north end of the peninsula, we had a square mile of buildable space down. And we had a deep harbor. Deep harbor was the key to the whole thing. The deep harbor, they could bring in big ships. If they could bring in big ships, they could make money, have success. Before long, the port of Boston, despite our small size, was the most successful commercial port on the colonial coast. People just started pouring in here left and right, and by the 1760s, we had more than 11,000 people crammed into this 1 square mile. Only about 5,000 people crammed in here today. It was here in the 1760s that secret meetings were taking place. Back rooms and alleys, basements, involving people like Sam Adams, John Hancock, Paul Revere, some of the leaders of the Revolution. These meetings were being held in response to heavy tax and trade policy all of a sudden being imposed on these people by their own government, by England. From these secret messages, secret meetings, came the Sons of Liberty, the first group to strongly oppose British oppression. And it's because of these Sons of Liberty that the American Revolution began at all, right here in Boston's North End. We talked about that and all kinds of things while we travel around. Since about 1910, though, the North End here has mostly been associated with Italian Americans and Italian immigrants. Some people call this neighborhood Little Italy. You'll find more than 100 Italian restaurants and pastry shops right here in 1 square mile. This is stop number 2. Anybody?
Well, there's a Starbucks by there.
So you could get the Power of Beer House here too. You have to. Yeah, it looks like it's maybe over there somewhere. So let's just take it around. But I'd like to get off.
Now, besides Italian restaurants and pastry shops, you'll also find that the Freedom Trail comes through the North End. It's a 2.5-mile trail that was laid out in the 1950s, designed to take you to many of the major historic sites. Now, as the Freedom Trail comes into the North End, it goes to the Old North Church. We're going to talk about that when we can see it. It also goes down a very narrow side street to the home of Paul Revere. He was a great patriot, sometimes. He was a courier for the cause of the American Revolution, carrying secret messages on horseback up and down the colonial coast. He was a metalsmith and a carpenter by trade. As a hobby, he was an amateur decorator. Don't get as much of that. But his home here in the North End is the oldest wooden structure in downtown. It was built in 1677. Revere bought it in 1770. Lived there for 30 years. And while Revere lived there, he fathered 16 children, 8 with each of 2 wives. One historian noted of Paul Revere, he wasn't a tall man, but he was a busy man. But anyway, speaking of Paul Revere, about a half a block down on our left in a second, we're going to pass an alleyway. And when we do, we'll look up, we'll see the steeple to Christ Church, Boston. It was built in 1723. They call it the Old North Church. The British had the Old North Church all locked up in the 1770s. They were afraid the Sons of Liberty would use it as a secret meeting house. But the janitor had the keys, 23-year-old Robert Newman.
We could walk.
He broke in there on April 18, 1775. It was about 8 o'clock at night. It was right after sunset. A couple of fellows came along, confirmed that night 700 British soldiers would row across the Charles River from Boston Common to Cambridge. From Cambridge, they would march to Concord to arrest the Samuel Adams and John Hancock, leaders of the Revolution, believed to be hiding out there. Although Sam and John were noted for pulling off ruses, and it's entirely likely that they weren't there at all, just sending the British on a wild goose chase. One way or another, once Bobby had that information confirmed,